Hey, it's the Schatz and Tanier NFL podcast for August 1st of 2024. Good morning. I am Aaron Schatz from FTN Fantasy. He is Mike Tanier from the MikeTanier.substack.com, and we are previewing the AFC East today on the Schatz and Tanier NFL podcast, brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports. It is also the fastest growing fantasy app in the industry, and now the home of Bill Belichick. Yeah, who would have thought that?
He's got to get on the internet to impress his young girlfriend.
And there's no site for him to get on that's more impressive than the best fantasy app, which is Underdog Sports, now offering a new customer FTN special with up to $250 on your first-time deposit. Best ball season is officially underway, and the easiest place to play is Underdog Fantasy. Make your choice from slow or fast drafts, starting with the $3 puppy all the way to the $1,000 mastiff. You can also challenge your friends in battles as small as 2 people and as big as the regular 12. The Underdog app is easy to use. New best ball drafts are dropping each week. With NFL season less than 2 months away, now is the time to start drafting to prepare for your home league. Sign up with promo code FTN and claim your 50% deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com or find them in the App Store, and do not forget to register with promo code FTN to claim that 50% bonus at Underdog Fantasy. In fact, NFL season arrives tonight.
Yes.
With the Hall of Fame game, which I normally skip because the Hall of Fame game is not even a regular preseason game. It is like the 4th string.
Yes.
But don't you want to see kickoffs? I kind of want to see kickoffs.
Not just kickoffs, but like Velus Jones for the Bears will be one of the ones doing the kickoffs. And anything can happen when he's waiting for a catch. I mean, it could be a fumble, it could be a muff, it could be a big play, it could be anything. But other than that, there's not much there. I don't think Caleb Williams is playing. I think that they're holding him out.
No, he's not playing. I believe Tyson Bagent is starting.
Well, I'm going to watch it on fast forward after I DVR it. Let's put it that.
Just want to watch kickoffs. Maybe that's what I'll do. You're right. Maybe I'll DVR it, and I'll just watch in the morning and watch the kickoffs.
Perfect.
That might be a good idea. We're going to talk about the AFC East today. So let's start off with the fact that I ran a new simulation to see what happened to the AFC East with some big changes that have taken place. So Shaq Barrett retired, right? Which doesn't seem like a big deal, but he had a very good approximate value last year. And it's a bigger deal than you think because we don't know if Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips will be ready for the start of the season.
Right.
Plus, the Patriots lost Christian Barmore probably for the whole season with blood clots.
Yeah.
So the old simulation had the Dolphins at 10 wins.
Okay.
And the Bills at 9.5.
Okay.
And I believe the Jets were at 8.8.
Right. So,
in the new simulation, we have the Dolphins down to 9.7.
Okay.
And the Bills up to 9.6. But I was surprised we still have Miami slightly ahead of Buffalo in wins because the Bills have the harder schedule, even though we now project the Bills to be the better team.
Yeah, that's remarkable. And that probably brings us closer to line with the house right now. I had it before you did all these. We had the Dolphins to reach the playoffs at minus 180. House had them at minus 155. Here's an interesting one. We had the Dolphins to reach the Super Bowl at plus 770, which I think is extreme. The house is at plus 1,100, excuse me.
So, right. Well, that will be lower now.
Yes. That
with the change that will the Dolphins, I don't have it translated into plus.
Do you have a percentage? I can do it real quick.
Yeah. Hold on a second, and I will get you the percentage in the playoff odds.
Yes.
So the old percentage had Miami winning the Super Bowl 6.0% of the time. The new one has Miami winning the Super Bowl 4.8% of the time.
4.8% would be a plus 1,900. We're now like below the house. but we're pretty close.
But we're pretty close to the market. Now, I mean, the team where we clearly are very different from the market is the New England Patriots, but we will discuss them last because even though we are very different from the market about the Patriots, we are very much in agreement with the market that the Patriots are very clearly the last place team in this division.
Yes.
So let's start by talking about Miami, since we do have them as the top team slightly. And don't forget, by the way, if you are watching us live, we do this live on YouTube at 11 a.m. on Eastern time on Thursdays. Please feel free to ask questions or make comments. So the Miami Dolphins project with one of the top offenses in the league, which I think is a pretty safe projection.
Yeah.
Why don't you give your thoughts? You wrote about it at the Substack, but why don't you give your thoughts about the Tua Tagovailoa contract?
Oh, my thoughts on the Tagovailoa contract on the Substack was it reminded me of having to pay for college. He's a B+ student, right? Yeah. Is this the impression? This is a B tier quarterback who is currently, at least for the next couple of years, being paid like an A tier quarterback. And I think my concern right now, when I started digging into that contract, I realized they can really punt on it after 2 years. You know, it's virtually a 3-year deal, but it's affordably excised after 2 years, assuming the injury guarantees don't kick in, then we're in a different story. So on the one side, I look at Tagovailoa and I say, okay, they're not paying him in perpetuity like you would like Joe Burrow. Then by the way, I look at the Giants and I say, look what they did with Daniel Jones. And there's a chance that like 3, 4, 5 weeks into this contract, you're regretting it. Tyreek Hill is angry about something. You get an injury or two. This team slips a little bit, and you're like, "Oh my God, we're on a 2-year commitment we didn't like." So I think these contracts are a necessity, but I don't think paying Tua Tagovailoa like this elevates the team in any way.
It's tough because what you want to do is pay him like the 6th or 7th best quarterback in the league,
right?
But the way contracts work is the last guy to get signed gets all the money. He doesn't have the most money, but both him and Jordan Love got a ton of money because they're the most recent guys to sign.
And they kind of tried to slot it in. So if you really take the guarantees and move them around, it is like the 6th or 7th. I just feel like they should be paid like the 11th or 12th or 13th.
Yeah, well, that's the problem is you don't get to do that. You don't get to pay guys based on how good they actually are. You get to pay guys based on who comes up next.
Who comes up and this perceived potential. But Tua's down the line a little bit in talking about perceived potential. And also when you look at this team, this is one of those teams where I say, well, for this year, I can see a playoff projection. But if you start projecting a year into the future and say, well, what's going to happen with their cap, the age of some of their players, et cetera, that's a problem. That's not the Packers' problem, but that is the Dolphins' problem.
Right. Camden Cap says, would it have been worth it for the Dolphins to take a risk on Justin Fields and see if McDaniels could fix him, assuming he has a higher ceiling than Tua? But I'm probably just crazy.
You're not crazy.
I think, he might have a higher ceiling, but he has a much, much, much lower floor. Mm-hmm. And the problem with Fields was if you brought him in and didn't pick up the option, you got him for a year. Right? So let's say that a team brings him in and fixes him, and you all of a sudden get a good performance out of Fields. Now you have to franchise him.
Yes.
And then you have to figure out a way to sign him to a long-term contract.
Which is one risk for the Steelers to take when they don't have that much moving forward. It's another thing to punt on a guy and take that risk, which is what you'd be doing. Also, the fixing Fields thing is kind of more of a wish than a plan. Let's put it that way.
I agree. I mean, it's a wish that I have. It would be a more fun league if Justin Fields was good.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
But he's not.
I look forward to the next Justin Fields to come and be that person. I don't think this Justin Fields is going to be it, unfortunately.
I mean, the next Justin Fields to be that person may be Anthony Richardson.
Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, or Jaden Daniels. Yeah.
All right.
It's interesting because the Dolphins, a lot, I think, does kind of depend on defense about what's the deal with these edge rushers. When are they going to get healthy? Because with Barrett retiring, they brought back Emmanuel Ogbah, but Emmanuel Ogbah barely got any playing time last year, and they lost Andrew Van Ginkel. So if Chubb and Phillips are not ready for the start of the season, the edge rush is really weak here.
It's a couple of rookies I liked in Mo Kamara out of Colorado State and first-round pick Chop Robinson. but it's still a couple of rookies. And when you try to rely on rookies at the edge, unless they get this immediate, like TJ Watt impact, you often have a developmental player who has got to learn how to adjust to NFL blocking and is going to be a step late guy. They're great coming off the bench. They're not bookend starters if the veterans aren't available.
So both, I think that's the problem for the Dolphins. The Bills, we'll get to in a second, have lost a lot of players. So I feel like these two teams are pretty even. I mean, our numbers have them as pretty even, and I feel like they're pretty even. And they both have a good shot of winning the division.
Yeah, I mean, I have faith in the Bills, and I don't have faith in the Dolphins, but that's a matter of faith, not analytics.
Here's an interesting question. Do you have less faith in the Dolphins because you think they can't win the division, or do you have less faith in the Dolphins because you think that once we get to the playoffs, if they don't have home field advantage, the speed does not play as much of a factor for them if they have to go on the road in cold weather?
I think that's a part of it, certainly. They just feel like they are designed to beat up on weaker opponents. Like that's kind of how they're built, and they're not super well built to face the top foes. And when I saw the projection, obviously, we'll talk about the Bills' schedule. I thought I was going to look across our spreadsheet and see that the Dolphins had the 14th schedule or something. They don't. They have the 4th hardest schedule. And, I pulled it up right now, and you talk about the playoffs. They also, the end of their schedule goes Jets at Texans, 49ers at Browns, at Jets. And that
is not an easy 5 games. Oh, and by the way, the game before those is at Green Bay.
At Green Bay. Cold weather, road teams, tough opponents in December. That looks like a real problem for the Dolphins.
Yeah. They have 4 of their final 6 games are on the road, and 3 of those are cold weather opponents.
Cold weather opponents.
And the home games include San Francisco.
Yes, a home game is San Francisco, which could be chilly and rainy, and it's also San Francisco. And
no, that's the home game. They're at home against San Francisco.
I forgot.
The road games are Cleveland, Jets, and Green Bay.
Gotcha. I forgot my talking point, just the breaking news. The rule book changes, one of the rule book changes that just got passed has pretty much outlawed speed motion. That
weird cheat motion thing that the Dolphins used that I think was it Ted Nguyen wrote about on The Athletic about a week ago. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and that could be a big thing if they can't do the thing where Tyreek Hill goes in motion and he's not allowed to go an inch towards the line of scrimmage anymore. If I'm reading the rule right, if he's going in any way forward, they're going to enforce that. That can cause all kinds of problems, and it could nerf the Dolphins more than any other team and considerably.
The one thing I will say about defense, switching back to defense, is the new defensive coordinator, Weaver, comes from the Mike McDonald school.
Okay.
So that may be able to make a pass rush, even if Phillips and Chubb aren't back for the start of the season, because that's what McDonald was able to do in Baltimore.
Baltimore, right. And he's got Clay Campbell there to help with that.
But it's tough seeing this defense. I mean, obviously defense we talk about all the time, less predictable than offense and everything, but especially with no Christian Wilkins, it's hard to see this defense as an above average defense.
Absolutely. No, I agree.
One quick question about the rule changes. Lee Ving wants to know if the tush push stays. I believe they slightly changed the rules about how you form the formation, but it basically stays.
Yeah, you can't be that close to the quarterback under center in the line of scrimmage. They're going to try and force guys to sort of be a step or two back from the quarterback, which means you can't line up with Dallas Goedert with one hand and DeAndre Swift on the other hand and Jalen Hurts' rear and shove him forward. They would have to kind of come up a step or two to make the shove. And I think that's going to be impactful as well. But I believe the speed motion is a bigger impact situation because that's just core to what the Dolphins do.
The Buffalo Bills, certain parts of the Bills stay the same. Right? Josh Allen is still the quarterback, and I think we would agree. I would say he's the second best quarterback in the NFL right now. Most of the edge rushers are the same. They get Matt Milano back from injury. James Cook had a good season running back last year. Other positions change dramatically with a huge change at wide receiver.
Yes.
And a huge change at safety.
Yes. At safety, they lost their 2 core safeties for years, Poyer and Hyde, that were there. Replacements appear to be Taylor Rapp, excuse me.
Right.
Certainly
with the Ram.
Yeah, he's a good ball player, good strong safety. And right now, rookie Cole Bishop is penciled as free safety. And of course, there's been a lot of talk about DeMar Hamlin coming back and making a step forward this year.
Mike Edwards is there, also came over from
right.
Kansas City, I believe, but is kind of going through an injury right now.
Yeah, so they've got guys at safety. They have solutions at safety. The solutions at wide receiver are a little more wobbly, and I think they've been much talked about over the last month or so.
It's interesting. I am not useful title reminds us one of those Buffalo safeties went to the Dolphins, which is Poyer.
Yes,
Poyer's now with Miami. So that's the reason to believe the Miami defense will be a little better. I'm not a Curtis Samuel guy. I think Matt Harmon is, and I do tend to trust Matt Harmon's reception perception, but I've always felt like Curtis Samuel was kind of just a guy.
Just a slotty McSlot guy. And yeah, he's always been like with weaker quarterbacks, et cetera, et cetera. But you're under 10 yards a catch time after time after time. I have to see it to believe that you're not.
I feel like there's too much of hoping with the Bills that because Josh Allen is so good that he can somehow raise like Marquez Valdez-Scantling or get Chase Claypool to show whatever he showed 3 years ago. And it's just not like, I think there's going to be a loss on offense. I mean, as much as they're going to use two tight ends with Kincaid and Knox, I love Shakir. I think Shakir is great. Mm-hmm. It does feel like their offense has to take a step back.
Take a step back or really redefine itself and be less. It's going to be less explosive. It's going to be less. Now, at the end of the season last year was less explosive, but it was more consistent. They're going to have to build on that significantly, I think, this year.
Yeah. The defense changed over a lot of defensive tackle type folks, and a lot of the safeties changed over, but getting Milano back is really big.
Yes.
And Rasul Douglas has been a really great corner for them for like a year and a half.
Yes.
And I mean, I do still feel like this team is a Super Bowl contender. I just feel like they're less of one than they were a year ago.
They're definitely a Super Bowl contender. We have them as the toughest schedule in the NFL.
They have the toughest schedule in the NFL. The 3 games that Buffalo plays different from the rest of their division. Let's see if I can remember which 3 games are the ones that are different from the rest of the division. Detroit, Kansas City, and Baltimore.
Yeah.
That is a really hard 3 games to have to play, particularly because we think the AFC West is generally so weak.
Mm-hmm.
It is much better to play the second, third, or fourth place teams in the AFC West than to have to play Kansas City. Now, they do get Kansas City at home, but they're at Baltimore and at Detroit. And those are the 3 games that are different from the rest of the division.
Right. And that's just defining for me, because when I look at all of the top contenders, and we can talk about the Bills wide receiving core, and then we can say, well, have you seen the Chiefs wide receiving core? Have you seen the Ravens wide receiving core? These are not strong receiving cores. The Bills are probably right in line with those. And you can say they retained as much talent as, say, they retained more talent, I think, than the Ravens did. Maybe if you accept Stephon Diggs out of there or whatever. But then you ask the question, what about these circumstances? What about the schedule? And that's what's the scary thing for the Bills. I think they're going to be a very strong team. But if they're grinding constantly against those opponents and they go like 500-ish against those opponents, where does that leave them?
Yeah.
Wild card team, or, you know.
I've talked a lot about how NFL history, in fact, sports history, is filled with teams that didn't make it to the Super Bowl in their best year.
Right.
Right? The Colts in 2004 and 2005 were better than 2006, but it's the 2006 team that won the Super Bowl. Or if you want to go back, the Rams were really good for the whole 70s. And then 1979, they barely win their division at 9-7.
Right.
And that's the team that made it to the Super Bowl, right? So it's possible that the Bills will do the same thing here.
But they're not.
But it's not likely.
No, that's like the Chiefs thing, where the Chiefs last year might fall into that category.
Yeah, because the Chiefs were better. The best Chiefs team of the Mahomes era is 2018, the team that lost to Brady in the AFC Championship game.
Right. So I say, are the circumstances in the Bills' favor? Not with this schedule. Not with the way the schedule's lined up.
No, and that's Miami's biggest advantage to win the division, or the New York Jets biggest advantage, because I will point out the projections, the Jets have the easiest schedule in the division.
Okay.
Because of where they finished last year and because the Patriots have to play the Jets. Because, I mean, the Patriots schedule is super hard in part because they're the worst team in the division.
Right. They have to play
Jets,
good teams. Yeah.
Right. Like the Jets defense, we agree, very likely, as likely as you could say a defense will be one of the best in the league, you can say the Jets defense will be one of the best in the league.
Agreed, because it's strong on all three levels. It's got strong depth. All the things that you might say, well, this is what's going to fall off. It's like there's a solution for that.
I just want to point out, okay, I talk a lot about how cornerback coverage stats are inconsistent.
Right.
But last year, Michael Carter ranked 5th in the coverage DVOA. Ahmad Gardner ranked 8th. And DJ Reed was also above average. Mm-hmm. This is a really good starting cornerback group.
Right. And they are bulwarked by an edge rush that can go, and Hassan Reddick's out there in the weeds, we realize that, can go still 2, 3, 4 deep with reinforcements.
Right. We still haven't really seen what Will McDonald can do in the NFL, really.
No. Exactly. He's strong. And Jermaine Johnson is a heck of a ball player. And they have all these guys in there, and they'll figure the Reddick situation out in time. It's a money situation. It'll get done. And if you're worried about cornerbacks' volatility, rush the passer. That's going to help them.
Yeah.
You know?
So then you get to the offense. Mm-hmm. And I think so much depends on what do you expect from a 40-year-old man coming back from an Achilles injury. And I just have no idea what to expect from Aaron Rodgers. Like, the offensive line is better, and they've protected themselves against injury. Mm-hmm. Right? They have the 3 new starting offensive linemen, and then they also have a first-round pick as the swing tackle, which helps protect against injury to Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses. And Mike Williams should be back at some point early in the season, and people like this rookie Malachi Corley. But it's all about Rodgers. It's all about Rodgers. Like, is he the Rodgers from the last year in Green Bay, or is he better than that, or is he worse than that because he's coming back from the injury? And Camden Cap says you don't believe in his magic healing rocks.
The magic Pharaoh rags or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, that's where our projection comes from, right? Our projection of the Jets is number 2 on defense and average on offense because we just don't know.
Which feels right. It feels right. And I think they've optimized everything around Rodgers as much as you can optimize it in the real structure of like the modern salary cap, getting these new linemen, getting these reinforcements, getting another wide receiver playmaker. All of that's there. The thing that like had my ears perk up is that Rodgers is not playing at all in the preseason. Last year, they played him in the preseason. There was like a expectation that he needed to get out there and shake the rust off. The fact that they're already kiboshing that has, back of my hair standing up a little bit saying, are they hiding a level of health risk?
Or are they just scared of a level of health risk?
Scared of it? Now, again, and remember, that decision is not made without Rodgers is okay.
I'm sure.
Yeah, Rodgers plays or doesn't play when he wants to. The thing is, last year he played, which is an indication he wanted to. And in the past, he's played in the preseason, which was an indication he wanted to. And now he doesn't want to.
Yeah. Finally, the New England Patriots, one of my favorite overs for this season. Yes. They have the lowest number in Vegas at 4.5. Mm-hmm. We have them projected 30th on offense. And after the Barmore injury, I believe they're down to 5th on defense.
Yeah.
But I still feel like this is a really easy over 4.5. Again, as I keep saying, this is a defense that was 9th in the league last year, despite being 30th in takeaways per drive, which is going to regress positively. And they're getting back their best pass rusher, assuming Matthew Judon gets his contract straightened out, and 2 of their 3 best cornerbacks.
Breaking news, Matthew Judon has reported back to practice. They had a great meeting, and they're moving forward. This is from Mike Reese, who's there, so that means he actually laid eyeballs on Judon, who is not there in his sweatpants and is probably there. So that has been settled, which means, at least in the short term, I have a funny feeling when the trade deadline approaches, it's going to be a different situation. But in the short term, he's there. That 4.5 under is Ridiculous. That's a license to print money.
It's really low. Like, it's really hard to predict that a team is going to win 4.5 games. To predict a team with an under that low, you need a team that is below average on both sides of the ball.
Right.
And they're not below average on both sides of the ball. And I'll add to that, it is very likely that Jacoby Brissett is going to be the starting quarterback for most of this season. And he is a more stable form of badness than a rookie, right? Like a closer to average form of below average.
He's a stable closer to average person. It's the supporting cast that brings it down to bad.
Yeah, okay. I think the receiver room is better than people think. I like Bourne a lot. I think it's still bad, but it's better than people think. They have no left tackle. When
Kendrick Bourne is your guy, you've forgotten what speed looks like.
Well, they still don't have a number. Like. There's no number one. It's all a bunch of 2s and 3s.
Yeah, and rookies.
But I feel like people act like it's like a black hole of doom. It's not quite that bad.
It's not as bad as the Chargers.
Camden Caps wants to know, what would you do with Drake May this year? Do you protect him and let him learn this year or throw him to the wolves? I will start by saying that any research we have ever done on this question comes with the answer, I don't know.
Same, right.
So I will say my opinion. My opinion is that because of the left tackle situation and because Drake May is the youngest of these rookie quarterbacks,
right,
that it makes sense to sit him for at least most of the year and let him learn and not get bad habits running away from pass rushers because Chukwuma Okorafor, who I like very much as a human being, because he really stepped up in Pittsburgh after the Tree of Life shooting, but he is not a left tackle.
Right.
You could get May killed. It's better to put Brissett in there. That is my opinion. What is your opinion?
I agree. This team is not built for the rookie. And a lot of the scouting report, May is the youngest one, was, hey, he's the most talented, but he needs a year. And the needs a year thing, always in my interpretation, is, are you sure he's that good? Because are you really projecting that he needs these things? But if the consensus is, well, he needs a year, that means at least he needs to not be thrown in as the opening day starter in a position like this. And left tackle is part of it, but team speed is another part of it. Like, who is getting open on their own for this young man?
But I mean, Javon Baker, maybe
Polk.
I mean, that's I like Bourne, but he's not like a speed guy. He's not like a speed deep guy. He gets open, but he's like a in the phone booth get open kind of guy.
In the phone booth, which means the timing has to be perfect from the quarterback, et cetera, or he's got to be the number 3 and he's facing the backup safety and he's got a better chance. And that's a position where you're going to have a rookie quarterback with heat bearing down because he doesn't have the left side of the offensive line, trying to discern whether this is about to flash open, whether Bourne is about to make the move and get the anticipation going, taking sacks, getting confused. I wouldn't do it in this case. Don't ask me about J.J. McCarthy yet, but for Drake May,
we'll get to J.J. McCarthy in a couple of weeks.
Or Bo Nix.
Hopefully I'll have an answer to that. Camden Cap says he doesn't have to deal with Matt Patricia, so at least he's got a chance.
Real coordinators.
And I will also say the Christian Barmore blood clots thing sucks.
That's horrible.
It's not good for the defense, and it's not good for him, and I hope he's healthy, and it's a bummer.
Absolutely. It's not the kind of thing you can just rehab.
Yeah.
Plenty of people with blood clots.
He's probably out for the whole year.
Yeah.
He's probably out for the whole year. All right. That does it for today's live stream and podcast, the Schatz and Tanier NFL podcast, brought to you again. Don't forget by Underdog Fantasy. Use code FTN at Underdog Fantasy to claim your 50% deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. So that is our 4th show of the season, which means we go into the Hall of Fame game tonight, and next week we switch to the NFC.
Yes.
NFC West. We're going to do the NFC West next week. We'll see if we can get Brian Knowles to come join us and talk about the San Francisco 49ers faithful blend of coffee.
I've been holding this up for 3 or 4 years. What's inside is probably terrifyingly rancid, but we're never going to find out. Oh, there we go.
And don't forget, if you haven't yet bought your copy, FTN Football Almanac, available at Amazon or at ftnfantasy.com/almanac. All of our previews, right in here. Absolutely. All right. For Mike Tanier, I am Aaron Schatz. We will see you again next week. So long, everybody.